Hi everyone, welcome to week 102. The question came up, if society didn't put such harsh stereotypes on the male versus female gender binary, do you think as many individuals would feel the need or want to transition? This is Steffi. It's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting question. There's a lot of bones hiding in that question. Let's explore some of the issues involved. And it took me a long time to work through my little notes. You know, they sit right down there. And it took me a long time to write my notes for this week's video, because there are a lot of bones in it. So I thought I would start off this week's story, or this week's question, with a story. Early in my career, I'm an engineer, you know that, electrical engineer, and early in my career, you know, we used to have lots of desks, you know, kind of in a lab kind of environment. And would have a desk and a workbench and a desk and a workbench and a desk and a workbench and things like that. And the fellow that I sat kind of next to, he was like 90 degrees away from me, was sitting there, I noticed one day, just absentmindedly trying to work out a problem. And he had one of these little dental picks. That used to be a tool that would have on each of our workbenches so that you could clean out holes from the through-hole stuff to change components and things like that when you're doing design work. And so we had these little dental picks that would clean the solder out from them. And he's sitting there absentmindedly trying to work out a problem with a dental pick in his hand, going ka-thunk, sticking it in his leg. And picking it out and going ka-thunk. Just ka-thunk, you know, while he's just working on there. Just absent-mindedly doing it is kind of a nervous habit. And I'm looking at this and saying, what the heck? And said, Chuck, what are you doing? And he looks up and says, I have a fake leg, didn't you know? And he had gotten so good at it, he has a prosthetic, he had lost his leg, and so he was actually just sticking it in the wood of his leg, so it wasn't hurting him anything. I thought, you know, this guy's into really S&M kind of stuff here. And no, that wasn't it at all. It was just a nervous habit. But, you know, the reason I bring that story up is, you know, society doesn't necessarily have a stereotype if you blend in well. So here's a guy with one leg. And he had gotten so good that no one realized that he really was just out of the ordinary. And, you know, as a transgender, you know, when we pass so well, society doesn't recognize us as being anything out of the ordinary either. So maybe that's what happens when there is no stereotype. But, you know, I got to thinking, that really begs then the question, is being transgender, a psychological or physiological issue? If it's physiological, and I think we all kind of agree that the vast majority of this is physiological. That's why there's no choice in transitioning. If it is physiological, then there's no stereotype issue. It's something we have to do, regardless of what society dictates. It's something we have to do. And that's because the brain and the body are disconnected. I know that for a fact, in my case at least anyway. I can't speak for anyone else in the entire world. But for me, I can speak. Because I know exactly what happened. I didn't understand early on in this game that I was a girl. What I did know is on hormones, I was improving physically. And when I did understand all of this stuff, my health vastly improved. Not just a little bit, vastly. And that's physiological. There's no psychological involved in there. Had I not become a woman, I would have died. And clearly I'm not dead, or at least I don't think I am. So it helped. So there is one issue there. It's a physiological issue. It's not a psychological issue in any way, shape, or form. None of this LGBT community stuff is really psychologically based. It's physiologically based. Which then brings up another bone. How about the non-binary issue? I can't speak for that because I identify binary gender-wise. So I tend to be a heterosexual female. It's weird because I thought I was a male. I thought I was a heterosexual male as well. But that was one of the issues that I had, is you don't really understand what you are. I do know some folks who are bisexual and bigender. So they have a four-way thing. They can interact as a male, interacting with male in a gay relationship, interacting with females in a heterosexual relationship, interact as a female with females in a lesbian relationship, and interact with males in a heterosexual relationship. That's fine for them. I think I would get confused. But I do know some people that are like that. And it's, again, if that were so, then why bother to transition? That has nothing to do with society. I mean, because they're doing all four things here. But yet, the physiological issue is forcing them to transition. So again, it comes back to, it's a physiological issue. Are there cases where there are psychological needs, rather, to transition? And the answer to that is probably. I'm sure there are folks who are not physiologically different, like I am. For example, I was physiologically different, but maybe there are some folks who are not physiologically different, but psychologically they need that other gender. And maybe, just maybe, that they would not find the need to transition if society didn't put such a harsh role on them. So, conclusions. What can we conclude from all of this? I think most folks would transition. I think, again, since it really is physiologically based, most folks are going to need the transition. They need that brain-body connect that they didn't have. Transition would certainly be easier. That was the story that I gave from my friend Chuck. I mean, it would be just like surgery, or just like getting over cancer, chemotherapy, and things like that. Yes, you might lose your hair while you're doing it, but if it works well. So maybe there's some issues there, but maybe that would help. So maybe the overall numbers would go down. maybe it would be a heck of a lot easier. But would people still do it? I think they would. So that's my take on this week. Until next week, this is Steffi saying bye-bye, everyone.